To answer this question, I compiled two descriptive passages and analyzed them. The first is called Subway Station by Gilbert Hyatt. Standing in the subway station, I began to appreciate the place, almost to enjoy it. First of all, I looked at the lighting. A row of meager light bulbs, unscreened, yellow, and coated in filth, stretched toward the back mouth of the tunnel, as though there was a bolt hole in an abandoned coal mine. Then I lingered with zest on the walls and ceilings, lavatory tiles which had been white about 50 years ago, and were now encrusted with soot coated with the remains of a dirty liquid, which might be either atmospheric humidity mingled with smog, or the result of perfunctory attempt to clean them with cold water. And above them, gloomy vaulting from which dingy paint was peeling off, like scabs from a wound, sick black paint leaving a leprous white undersurface. Beneath my feet, the floor, a nauseating dark brown with black stains upon it, which might be from a stale oil or dry chewing gum or some worse defilement. It looked like the hallway of a convent slum building. Then my eye traveled to the tracks, where two lines of glittery steel, the only positively clean objects in the whole place, ran out of darkness into darkness above an unspeakable mass of congealed oil, puddles of dubious liquid, and a mishmash of cigarette packets, mutilated and filthy newspapers, and the debris that filtered down from the street above through a bared grating in the roof. Some of the literary devices that were used were imagery, which is in pink, adjectives, which is in the green, and an example of symbolism, which is the yellow. An example of imagery in the text is yellow and coated with filth, stretched toward the black mouth of the tunnel as though it were a bolt hole in an abandoned coal mine. This makes you visualize how the subway looks like and the colors inside. Another example in the text is where it says, the floor, a nauseating dark brown with black stains upon it. A second literary device that is used are a lot of adjectives, such as I looked at the lighting, unscreened, were now encrusted, coated with the remains, mingled with smog, vaulting, looked, glittering, traveled, etc. The third literacy device that was used was symbolism, which was darkness, which is the word used. This is symbolism because darkness can kind of represent death or change, or like going to somewhere unknown, like going through a dark tunnel to somewhere unknown. The author's purpose of this descriptive passage was to show appreciation for something that, even though it was old and ugly, it still was able to do its job, such as in the scenario of the subway. It's dark, rusty, polluted, and ugly, but it's still able to function and take people to new places. It's kind of like a Nokia brick phone. They may not be as appealing, but they can still be used to call message people. An example of this in the passage is when, in the opening line, they say, I began to appreciate the place, almost to enjoy it, which shows that the person starts to like the subway. But then it carries on and it talks about how dingy and rusty and how unappealing the place actually is. The second passage is called The Laundry Room. The windows at either end of the laundry room were open, but no breeze washed through to carry off the stale odors of fabric softener, detergent, and bleach. In the small ponds of soapy water that stained the concrete floor were stray balls of multicolored lint and fuzz. Along the left wall of the room stood 10 rasping dryers, their round windows offering glimpses of jumping socks, underwear, and fatigues. Down the center of the room were a dozen washing machines, set back to back in 2 rows. Some were chugging like steamboats. Others were whining and whistling and dribbling suds. 2 stood forlorn and empty, their lids flung open, with cruelly drawn sign that said broke. A long shelf, partially covered in blue paper, ran the length of the wall, interrupted only by a locked door. Alone at the far end of the shelf sat one empty laundry basket and an open box of Tide. Above the shelf at the other end was a small bulletin board, decorated with yellow business cards and torn slips of paper, scrawled requests for rides, reward offers for lost dogs, and phone numbers without names or explanations. On and on the machines hummed and wheezed, gurgled and gushed, washed, rinsed, and spun. To analyze the second passage, I have used pink again as to show imagery, and the green to show all the adjectives. So an example of imagery in this text is the stale odors of fabric softener, detergent, and bleach. So this is creating like the smell and atmosphere of how the laundry room is. Another example of imagery is the windows at either end of the laundry room were open, but no breeze. So this also creates, like, this is how it looks like, and also says there's no breeze, so you can imagine it's like the weather and the feel. It's probably very humid and hot. Some adjectives used in the text were washed, stained, washing, chugging, whining, whistling, dribbling, flung, sat, scrawled, hummed, wheezed, gurgled, gushed, washed, rinsed, and spun. The author's purpose is to show how chaotic the laundry rooms are on the streets of New York, like as a location, for example. It does this by describing the noises and the sights of the laundry room, creating like a hectic atmosphere. It does this by saying that the machines hummed and wheezed and gurgled and gushed, and how it also the machines made noises and were chugging like steamboats, were whining and whistling and dribbling, and etc. Also, it's in the passage, the purpose is all about creating like the atmosphere, that it's dirty and that everything is everywhere. And it also does that by describing how there's post-it notes everywhere. It says that there is a bulletin board decorated with yellow business cards and torn slips of paper, scrawled requests for rides, rewards for lost dogs, phone numbers with no names or explanations, etc. So to answer the question, the purpose of the passage does affect the writing style, because in the first passage it was about the subway, and the purpose was about how something you really like can be like something really not nice, but you still like it because it gets the job done, because like the subway. And because they have less adjectives than the second passage, which is the laundry room, which is just describing how chaotic and hectic the laundry rooms are. I'm talking about the ones on the streets that everyone uses, like the public ones. And also, the subway station by Gilbert Hyatt has more imagery than the laundry room. However, the laundry room has more imagery, but more imagery that you would like envision as you would hear, something that you would just picture in your head and like a noise to go with it than the subway station, as the subway station is more based on the odor and the actual scenery. Also, the subway station has a word that symbolizes many other things, which is darkness, which the laundry room doesn't. So it shows that depending on the purpose, you will have less, you'll use different adjectives, you will use less, you will use more adjectives, you will use different types of imagery, like tactile imagery, for example, and more or less of it. And also, if you have, depending on your purpose, you will include words and symbolism in the story.